Assalamu alaikum. And hello, everyone. I'm your host, Hannah Zuberi. And welcome back to another episode of Justice for All Now on Muslim Network TV. You can watch us on Galaxy 19, Roku TV, Amazon Fire, and soon on Apple TV. Discrimination and irrational fear of Muslims and Islam is still on the rise across the nation, even amongst COVID 19, as well as the nation going through a deep crisis over police violence. So, according to a report published by the Institute of Social Policy and Understanding, negative public opinion has increased over the last 2 years. Nationally, Muslims only account for, officially, for 1% of the population, yet Islam is also the fastest growing religion in the United States. Recently, we saw a small town in Tennessee be the center of extreme Islamophobia. An ad was published in the Tennessean newspaper, a local newspaper in Nashville, Tennessee, that suggested that Muslims are prepared to use nuclear weapons against the United States, potentially inciting more hatred and fear towards the American Muslim population. The Tennessean is run by editor Maria de Vereen, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and is the principal daily newspaper in Nashville, Tennessee. Joining us today, so there was a response, obviously, on social media, nationally, national organizations got involved, but we wanted to hear the voice of local Muslim community members from Tennessee, from Nashville especially, and especially the leadership from that area, because they know their community like no one else does. So joining us today to discuss the recent incident and the aftermath, and some positive, some negative, is Sabina Muhyiddin. She's the former director of the local, Sabina Muhyiddin is a Bangladeshi American Muslimah born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. She graduated from the Vanderbilt University in 1993 with a degree in mechanical engineering. So in 2010, Sabina helped launch the Daughters and Sons and Daughters of Abraham Project, which brings Muslims, Christians, and Jewish youth across Middle Tennessee together for interfaith dialogue and outreach programs. She's also a founding board member and currently the executive director of the American Muslim Advisory Council, which empowers the Muslim community in Tennessee through civic engagement, community building, and improved media relations. So thank you so much, Sabina, for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. So let's tell us more about Nashville, Tennessee. How big is it? How big is the Muslim population there? How many masajid do you guys have?
So the Middle Tennessee area has about 1 million residents, and in Nashville is the second largest city in Tennessee and the capital. And in the Middle Tennessee area, we have about 40,000 Muslims. And so our largest community in Nashville is the Kurdish community, comprising about 15 to 20,000 strong. And then we have a large population from the Somali community. And then you have all, from around the world. And then we have African American communities. So in this area, we have 11 mosques just in Middle Tennessee. But so, we're a vibrant community in the middle of the Bible Belt.
And so what does that mean to be a vibrant community in the middle of the Bible Belt? What does that look like? How active is the community?
So the American Muslim Advisory Council, we're a statewide organization. So we work across the state, but obviously in the larger cities, they're usually more progressive, usually, in terms of Islamophobia, it's a bit less than if you go into rural Tennessee. And for myself, I used to live in Tullahoma, Tennessee, a little town, you can say over 95% white, very conservative Christian community. And so, what you see in rural Tennessee will be vastly different than what you see in Nashville. But those elements of, those who try to marginalize our community and do the fear mongering, they're everywhere.
So I wanted to ask you, how many incidents of anti-Muslim bigotry has taken place in that area in the recent years?
In the recent years, I mean, so you really have to think about in terms of bullying in school and threats to our mosque. We've had some threats to some of our mosques. Bullying in school is something you always hear. I don't, it's always present. And as you know, especially with the 2016 election, there was a lot of fear in the community. And, our kids, unfortunately, they're almost like on the front lines in terms of when something bad is going on in the community, they feel it first. We hear cases of discrimination all the time, and companies that tolerate it, and so these things are always alive and present.
When this happened, when the ad came out, was this something that you would have expected in the newspaper? Tell us more about the newspaper and what actually, for our audience, the ad came out. It was a full page ad in the local newspaper, and extremely inflammatory, criminal. I would call it criminal. The accusations, and it was by a nonprofit, I believe, or a faith-based organization that had placed it. Faith-based organization. So tell us more about. Had you seen it? What was your reaction? Did you see it online first, or did you open up the newspaper and see it?
Well, nowadays we don't get paper copies of the newspaper. So, actually I woke up and it was already being posted online. And so that's where I first saw it. It was a feeling of shock. It was a shock. Now, the details of what was in the ad, it was literally, saying that July 18th, Islam is going to detonate a nuclear bomb in Nashville. So it was very specific to Nashville. And so I was shocked to see it in the Tennessean. So over the years, I would say in 2010, there was an article in the Tennessean, and it was called "Is Islam a Threat?" And the whole premise of the article was problematic. And we, as community leaders, Muslim community leaders, we reacted right away. We organized. We talked to the newspaper editors and said, how could you print this? And we explained on so many levels what was wrong with it. And from that point, we started to build a better relationship with them. And so over the years, publishing different editorials and then articles, and being able to have that relationship when something's going on in our community, to be able to amplify it, and not have the media always be reactionary. So if it's something happened overseas, then they're like, oh, what is a Muslim community reaction? But really, what are our roots in the community, and how are we part of this community? And so we have really good relationships with a number of editors and reporters. And so seeing this in the Tennessean was a shock. It was just literally a shock. And for me, having lived in rural Tennessee, groups like these end of time groups with all these absurd prophecies that are going to happen, this is not something new. Like in my small town I lived in, you would see once in a while ads in the newspaper that a church was bringing this group in to talk about end of times. So what was being said wasn't so shocking to me because I know it's out there, but the fact that a reputable newspaper in the second largest city in Tennessee would print it was shocking. Now, we reached out to the editors and reporters, and you know, of course, they were apologetic. They were shocked themselves. They didn't know that the ad ran. And
So can you explain that? So the editorial department is totally separate, and it hasn't the Tennessean been bought out by a larger by the USA Today from.
Yes, and that is true. The editorial department is separate from the marketing and from the advertising department. So, but regardless, the final product is on their shoulders, and they took responsibility for it. But the problem is the damage cannot be undone. And so how can you go back from that? You know, because even though they pulled the ad from the online edition, people had the paper edition at home. And so you never know, who is out there who reads it and says, well, this just, verifies all the ideas I had about Muslims and Islam.
And it had the Pope's picture on it.
Yes.
Right? And it looks like it doesn't even look like an ad. It looks like an article, the way it's laid out.
Right.
It could have been an editorial from the paper and unless you're really paying attention.
And I made the point that, I can write an editorial, put it as an ad and pay money and have it printed by a newspaper. I mean, this is what was being done, right? And so what are their protocols for getting an ad published? So, is this that anyone can do, put something like that? And this ad came out on Sunday, and a few days before, the same group had another ad which looks similar, but the writings was a little different, but it was kind of a build up to Sunday's ad. So it didn't talk about Islam or Muslims directly, but I think it should have been caught at that moment that this is a problematic ad. And I think that's where, and we've, demanded the Tennessean that you need better education, cultural competency, but education about Islamophobia. So you can see and recognize, that they should have been able to recognize from that first ad where this was leading up to, and it was leading up to something no good.
And your city has had its first councilwoman who's a African American Muslim, so this is just having that's progress on that front, but that also scares people. It scares people to see someone like that representing, the change. So what's the reaction to her election?
So Zulfat Suera, she's a Nigerian immigrant, and she became a councilwoman at large. So she represents all of Nashville and all of Nashvillians. So, she's been a strong voice for all marginalized communities here in Nashville, and her expertise in finance has helped her through the very difficult budget process. So, people know her, and yes, somebody asked me, like, with all the progress made in Nashville, how what does this mean? Like, and I say, the more progress you make, the more the people who are against you will shout louder. And so it's still to be expected. It's to be expected. So, we're not surprised, as an organization. AMAC was founded in 2012, and in 2010, all the controversy over the building of the Murfreesboro Mosque, and they went through they went through hell in terms of, the pushback they got in the community and the discrimination and bullying of the kids. So, and then 2011, there was an anti-Sharia bill in the Tennessee State Legislature. So the Tennessee State Legislature has been testing ground for a lot of extreme bills. And we organized this Muslim community, and we brought our allies, and we pushed back, and we realized that, our mosques weren't equipped to fight Islamophobia, that you need an organization. And that's how we started the American Muslim Advisory Council. So, through the years,
yeah, you guys brought over Paul Galloway, Issa Galloway,
yeah,
from Houston to run it.
He was the executive director for a few years, and so, there's always something going on, always something we have to react to. And I think, and I'm glad you reached out to us to interview, because we're the ones working on the ground on these issues. We know our community. What works in New York or Chicago or Washington, D.C. does not necessarily work in Tennessee.
That's that I wanted to ask you. Should small cities and people watching this who might be living in small cities across the United States or Canada, wherever they may be, who are facing anti-Muslim bigotry, and remember, like we're beaming out to places where you might not have a large Muslim community. So should smaller cities, with smaller cities, I don't mean like the size of the actual city, but the smaller American Muslim population is smaller in their area. Should they use the same tactics as cities with large populations of Muslims?
No, I think you have to be, you have to know your people, and you have to know who your enemies are. You have to know who are those, who are just being misled, and you have to work with your allies. And you have to work with your allies on the ground. When outside organizations come in and they try to take over or take the lead, they have no credibility in the community. And so that sometimes causes a larger backlash. And so, in part of our strategy is always, sometimes we will publicly talk about an issue. So in the 2018 gubernatorial campaign, the candidate Bill Leaves made a comment that was disparaging against his opponent because he was visiting a Muslim restaurant. And we called him out on it. We called him out. That was something we publicly called him out, and they called me and apologized, and that was important. But then there were other incidents. There was going to be a security summit. So instead of calling them out publicly, which may have caused more backlash, may have caused more of the Islamophobic or people who supported that security summit to come out and raise their voices, we decided, let's get our allies, let's get to reach out and put the pressure on the president of the university where this event was going to happen. So, we know the community, we know which avenues to go through, which allies to pull up and ask, but know that we're taking the lead in terms of doing it. But strategy calls for sometimes doing things in a very public-facing manner, and sometimes doing things behind the scene. Whatever works for our community, that's what we're about.
When does national or international pressure help, and when does it hurt?
I think it can hurt in terms of outside, in terms of putting pressure on the government. But Tennessee legislature is very conservative. And so, and that's sometimes the problems we have. And sometimes they see national organizations stepping in as almost like a badge of courage, or a victory for them, and they can actually raise more money for their causes because the national organization said this is about them. And so I think
can it help at sometimes? Can it help? Can national and international pressure help? Because even as the tweet was going on,
I think it can help, but they have to work with the people on the ground.
Exactly.
So. And so the strategy has to be, worked out together.
That's true. So this is something that, and this is something that I was watching on social media and following, and I can see where there's a lot of like people are calling for the entire newspaper to go, be just shut down. Some people were calling for the USA Today to fire the top editorial staff, all sorts of things that we were seeing on social media. But things have what has transpired since then, and what were your asks, and how many of those have been met?
So some of these things we're still working on.
Okay.
So some of these things are still working on, but they have publicly, through the article and through calls, they've apologized. They were embarrassed by what happened. There was a sales manager who was fired, but we want to know more details because it cannot be on the shoulders of one person. So definitely we are asking for more. We were asking for a better protocol in terms of what is approved and not approved for advertising. And then we are asking that they have diversity training and training on Islamophobia. So when they're running stories, they understand. We've seen it over and over again. So many media groups and media stories that they marginalize the Muslim community. They only talk about us in terms of threats, whether we're safe or we're a threat, and so educating them on that, but also really, wanting diversity in staff. So there is not a Muslim working in their staff, and you have to look at the reporters and staff and the stakeholders in the newspaper. Are there any Muslims there? I mean, not just Muslims, diversity in general. If you're a media outlet, you need to have all perspectives on board. And it's great that, they call us, or sometimes we're writing editorials or their articles about our community, but it has to come from within. So it has to be from their staff. So
would you want the Tennessean to be shut down tomorrow?
We have a relationship with them. They are the largest newspaper, the most widely read newspaper. Is that in our best interest to have them shut down? We get our stories out too. This is, we have to be strategic.
And their local newspapers are shutting down all across the country, and that's not good for a democracy.
No.
So that as personally from my end, I would hate to see a paper shut down, especially if their editorial staff is not blatantly Islamophobic. But we cannot deny that. Look at this, the ad, right? The ad itself, it was Islamophobically charged. The advertisement was full page. So not only and the claims were just so bizarre. But this message is not only harmful to Nashville's community, not just to Tennessee, but the country as a whole. We are in an election year. So how do you think this kind of rhetoric could influence President Trump's campaign in the coming year? Do you think this kind of sentiment could harm the direction that your city is going in?
So with or without this article, it's an election year. And you should, and ISPU, they have their data that shows that Islamophobic attacks rise during election years. And so even before this ad came out, I was warning community members, look, this is an election year, be on the lookout. And, and this was an ad, but politicians are going to say what they need and to label us a threat and bring up the national security issue. We already know Trump's track record. He's going to say whatever he's going to say against our community. So I'm more worried about the local elections, the state houses and state senate, and how they draw on this issue and how they use it, because oftentimes it's the rural counties. That's where it's happening. That's where there are hardly any Muslims living. Where are they going to get the pushback? And that's the work that we do, building these relationships with different groups to say, look, we're empowering you. When you see something hateful against our community, speak up. Say you're not going to tolerate it. So making those connections and building those friendships and alliances are very important. But just expect it. It's an election year.
So that's the messaging that a lot of people who might be in similar situations across the country expect it. Be diligent about pushing back. Don't take, so from what I'm hearing from you is don't take it lying down. Speak up, whether publicly or privately, and address that hate. So one of the things that when you were looking at just even this ad, where the whole thing about warfare and Islam, and so what has the community in Nashville, and the fact that you all are next to, like the nexus of where Act for America, which is the largest anti-Muslim grassroots organizations in the country, who have been behind these Sharia law, anti-Sharia laws, and just extreme hate towards Muslims. You're in that. That's where you guys are located. So I would love to hear what are your plans, and what have you all been doing to educate people, get people involved in and getting more of the Muslim community civically engaged.
So our mission is to empower the Muslim community, and that comes in different ways. So first of all, we all know we have to be civically engaged. We need to be out there in the community. We need to know what the issues are, especially with the local elections, and need to be voting. And not all our community members or citizens, they can't all vote, but those who can need to be voting. And if you can't, you can still be working, be civically engaged and working on issues. I think educating our community on these issues is important. And right now with Black Lives Matter protests, that is one of the areas we're working on. Not just educating our community on racism and anti-Blackness within the community, but trying to understand racism within the educational with education within and the economic inequities in the community. So not just telling people to vote, but empowering them with understanding the issues, and then we work on educating the community. So whether that's educating the Muslim community in terms of their rights with law enforcement in the workplace, but also educating the non-Muslim community about who we are as Muslims. But what I think is really key, and we can do a lot of Islam 101, and that's a great starting point. But we need to educate people about Islamophobia. People don't understand it. And so
they don't understand that it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, not just millions, billions.
Right.
And people are funded. That's what they run their careers on. So definitely that is something that even our own communities don't understand.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of internalized Islamophobia in our own communities.
Right.
So
good Muslim, bad Muslim kind of dynamics.
Exactly.
Who's acceptable, who's not acceptable. That is an important conversation to have, like within the Muslim community and then outside the Muslim community. So cultural competency training and training around Islamophobia. And then it is, part of empowering the community is our relationship with media. It is getting our stories in whether it's in print or broadcast or through social media, getting our stories out there. So we control the narrative. We have to control the narrative.
So as we have a few minutes left, I know you have a meeting to follow up with all of that. So as you go, let us know what has transpired since then. So the sales manager has been fired. They have decided, the newspaper has decided to grant a gift to your organization of all the ad money that came from those ads. What else has happened?
They've also are giving us $25,000 in free ad space to use as we wish, and they're also granting $25,000 for Muslim organizations and businesses to have that free ad space. And so, that is something we want to use strategically, use it wisely, to really benefit the community, and not just the Muslim community, the broader community. Because really, empowering our community means we build alliances, that we're not just fighting for our own rights, but as Muslims, we fight for everyone's rights. We fight for justice. So I think that's an important focus. That's a focus we have to keep to. That we want to stand up for justice for all.
That's great. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your thoughts. We're following this as a case study, just to see what happens because it's hard enough to fight Islamophobia in larger metropolitan areas where there is there are more allies. But to fight it on the ground in smaller Muslim communities, and just see the powerful work that is coming. That's important to highlight, and it's important for people to learn from that, because not everything is about and a lot of times for people who are working nationally, including ourselves, internationally, sometimes it's sort of like you focus on a case and then you move on because there's so many more happening across this town. So it's sort of like hit and run and move on. But you guys are the ones who have to deal with the aftermath and building those bonds. And it's your children on the front lines. It's your brothers and sisters on the front lines in that city. So one thing that I would say, yes, what you said is work together, strategize together, and take the lead. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Sabrina, and good luck, and keep us updated, and maybe we'll do this, and would love to have Councilwoman Zulfat on here once she's less busy and the budget passes. So now I wanted to talk to someone who's been a resident of the area, who's really well in tune with what Tennessee is like. So I'm going to welcome my next guest, Dr. Hannah Ali. Dr. Hannah Ali was a first-time candidate and graduate of the Emerge Tennessee training program. She ran for House District 45 in Sumner County. Hannah is a healthcare executive, physician, business owner, and entrepreneur. She's also a wife and a mother. She's currently the chairperson of the Sumner County Democratic Party and is the first Muslim woman chairperson in the history of Sumner County. So welcome, Dr. Hannah. I'm really glad that you could take time out. I know you've had a really, really busy couple of days, and I wish we'd met in better circumstances. But how are you doing, and how's your community doing?
Hannah, thank you for having me. We're doing fine. Of course, as you know, that the circumstances could have been better. Tennessean ran this ad, which was really reprehensible. And we were all shocked and saddened to see the extent of this ad, because it ran twice on a Wednesday, and then it got caught on Sunday. As you know, the readership is usually higher on the Sunday paper. So we found out about it a Sunday.
And what was the reaction of your community, just locally? So I'm not talking about the organizations. Obviously, that's their that's their job to respond to events like this. But as a community member, as somebody, a mother and a wife who lives in that, as a doctor in that community, what was the reaction of the local community?
The local community was shocked and saddened, as I've said earlier. What this ad does is that it plays into the stereotypes and it incites violence against a minority.
Mm-hmm.
Islamophobia and anti-Semitism are fangs of the same snake.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-Semitism gets condemned. Unfortunately, Islamophobia does not get condemned. This is one of the things that we actually wrapped up a meeting with the Tennessean editorial board, where they reached out to leaders in Muslim community to offer their sincere apologies and to reflect on this moment. And the consensus from the Muslim community was we were all on the same page. The first thing is that we needed to ask how a colossal mistake of that nature could happen at an institution like Tennessean.
Mm.
It is one of the oldest papers in Tennessee, as you know. It has huge readership. And we hold Tennessean to a high journalistic standard.
Mm.
We expect better from them, and we expect them to make sure that this is a mistake that does not happen again.
Mm.
It puts a target on the back of the Muslim community.
Oh, definitely. Because as we saw that the ad was it was criminal. That's something that that I feel like it's not only shameful, but that it could be used to not only target the Muslim community, just the level of hatred in it, the level of disinformation. So that was what was really shocking to those of us who don't live there. And so I do understand that the Muslim community has had an increasingly friendly relationship with the editorial staff and to the newspaper. So this isn't something, and this is something that I noticed on your Twitter as well, is that you don't want the Tennessean to shut down. And tell us why, like especially the role of local journalism. Why is that important to you?
Well, it is important to me because once you participate in the political conversations, you understand that how journalists are an integral part of making sure that the stories are brought to light for the readers to read and know and understand. It was important for me to know and see that the reporters whose work I really value and appreciate and respect, when they saw this ad, they were appalled. A lot of them personally messaged me saying how embarrassed they felt that the organization that employs them had run this ad, and it was a level of professional negligence that happened in the ads and marketing department. And not a lot of folks understand that the editorial department and the sales and marketing department work independently of each other. A lot of these editors, a lot of these reporters have been on furlough off and on, taking 1 week off and then working for a week. Now, a lot of them do not have access to the work tools to be able to respond to when this happened on Sunday, and they felt frustrated over it. And I sensed it, I felt it. And in times where journalism is under attack, the journalism and journalists are under a constant threat, we feel that it's important for people to understand that canceling subscription is not the right way to go. Yes, holding them responsible is important. Asking questions is important. Making sure that they put in place checks and balances so that a mistake like this never happens again is important. But axing journalism is not the answer. Just like our African American community and the entire country is right now going through this moment, which is bigger than any of us, the Black Lives Matter movement. We do not want to take away the importance that movement has right now.
Mhm.
We are allies to all minorities. If one minority is under attack, it means all minorities are under attack. Islamophobia, as you can see on this tweet, is not new in Tennessee. It's a $1 billion industry. Southern Poverty Law Center has identified 38 hate groups right here in Tennessee,
Mm.
which 4 are dedicated anti-Muslim groups. So we understand that the threat from these hateful groups is constant. It was just that when Tennessean offered the ad space to them,
Mhm.
we felt that we lost an ally.
Ah.
So that was very shocking. And once we got to hear from the reporters on how appalled they were by this ad, we understood that those reporters did not have a direct hand in it.
Mm.
However, there's one thing that I would always want to point out is that our faith teaches us kindness and forgiveness, especially in testing times. So even though that we are really not happy and we really feel threatened and hurt by the ad that was run, we feel that it's important for journalists to understand that this is a time for them to reflect somberly
Mhm.
and go back and see how many positive stories they can do on Muslims
Mhm.
that they can run in Tennessee. And because a lot of times we see the media bias
Yeah,
against
definitely.
Muslims and Muslim communities.
And that's something, actually, this is really, so I'm a journalist. I used to work for a small newspaper as well, and one of the things that small community newspapers are struggling with is what happens is, when you come and report on a story and you make this like binary, like, this is what happened and I'm going to report. For example, if it's a school bullying issue, you talk to the parents and you talk to the school administration, and there's this, you pitting two parties against each other, and that, how does that build community? Like, how does even how we report stories build community, or do they destroy community? Because that sort of sells the clickbait, the sort of like pitting two voices against each other. So that's something, that's a change that a lot of, I know, smaller newspaper editors struggle with, journalists struggle with, because corporate media, that's what sells, right? So but those journalists have to live in the communities that they report on, so it's not easy to just like do that and leave. So what I wanted to ask you, your in your personal journey to running for office, like, what does hate in Tennessee look like? What does anti-Muslim bigotry look like in Tennessee? What have you experienced?
Well, I will tell you that I absolutely love this place.
Okay.
Um, it is a very warm community, kind-hearted people, a lot of bless your heart, and it takes a little bit of time to understand that what actually is meant and what is the tone when somebody tells you bless your heart. uh, Polite racism is something that I would use the term to describe it, because there's no other way to describe it. People are actually really nice to you, and it may give you mixed signals, but you have to understand where they're coming from and what moment you're in with them. When you mentioned that these reporters live in the communities that they work in, that they report on, this was exactly the sentiment we had on regarding this current crisis that we're facing after this unfortunate ad was run in Tennessee. And these reporters do the hard work of going into small communities, building relationships. And when something like this happens, it betrays their work. Um, it betrays the readership. It betrays the trust that we have in this institution. So they have to restart the exhausting work of then coming back, offering an apology, making sure it's sincere. And the first thing that we did on Twitter as soon as we were made aware of this incident was that we asked Tennessean to return the ad money and contribute it to AMAC, which is, the American Muslim Advisory Council based here, right here in Middle Tennessee. They do the tireless work of building bridges between communities. They have done a lot of interfaith work right here in Middle Tennessee. And that is something that we will follow up and make sure that that happens.
Were you satisfied with how the incident was handled by the reporter post the backlash? Were you happy with the steps that have currently been taken, or and I want to know what further actions you would like to see? And I know you talked about doing more stories on the Muslim community, so let me know. What's your position right now?
So we were told by the Tennessean that failure happened in the ad department. The person who first saw the ad, they flagged it and they brought it to their supervisor. It was the failure on supervisor's part because they agreed to run the ad. They gave it to two other people in the same ad and marketing department, and both of them did not take time to read the ad in its entirety. So what we're being told by Tennessean is that that supervisor who had okayed the ad has been relieved from their position at the Tennessean. And they have also returned the money back to the fringe organization or the fringe religious group, which is based in Arkansas. They have also promised to give the money to AMAC and also give ad space for future ads that are run by AMAC and other Muslim organizations. However, this is not the only thing we have asked for. This is just the first few steps in the right direction to make amend to this colossal mistake. What we have asked them to do is to make sure that they're not only denying the ad space to anti-Muslim groups, but they're also denying the editorial space to anti-Muslim voices, because in the past we have seen several anti-Muslim voices that had, that they were given an editorial. We're also asking them to do a diversity training with AMAC. We're also asking them to maybe make sure that they can do an investigative report on the hate groups that are right now working out of Tennessee and find out, follow the money, where the money is coming from, who's paying these. A lot of hate rallies have happened in Tennessee in the past, and as you can see that Islamophobia has been sanctioned by the highest office in our current times, which is the most unfortunate thing for all minorities, not just Muslims, but all minorities. Also, hiring people of color in these organizations, hiring more journalists of color, hiring more minorities is going to be something that I hope Tennessee will look into and consider.
Excellent. So one thing that I wanted to ask you was, what is July 18th going to look like for the Muslim community in Tennessee?
This is one of the things that a lot of people at AMAC and a lot of leaders in the local mosques have shared concerns with. Should we beef up the security? Should we ask for more police patrolling? Will the Jummah prayer will the Jummah prayer be safe to go and attend? As you know, with the pandemic for almost 3 months, mosques have been closed. There were no congregation prayers, no Taraweeh, there was no Eid congregation. So now that masajids are slowly getting back to being open, they have a very small capacity that they will allow people to gather in because of pandemic anyways. But the small group of people that will choose to go will have the sense of being under threat constantly. This is really the most unfortunate part about Tennessee and realizing the grave mistake they made in running this ad.
So from my discussion with you and with Sabina, one of the things that I can see is that the approach that you all have taken, and that could be a case study for others who live in communities where the Muslim community is a small, very tiny in number compared to some of the larger cities. Like here in the DMV area, we have gigantic mosques filled up all the time because there's just like 10% of Montgomery County is Muslim. So that's a very different, or Chicago or Los Angeles, like that's a very different scenario than where you all are at. And some of the positives that people can take away from this is that building up those coalitions and having those ties. So this is something that has been repeatedly brought up by you as well as Sabina. Well, I'm really grateful for you guys to be here and to share your thoughts on this, because it's important for us to reflect on what went right and what went wrong, or what could what communities, like taking back the narrative yourself and really being at that forefront and not taking it lying down, because there are a lot of communities that have they're scared to even speak up. And that's really excellent that you guys, and I know you've been trained through the various waves of Islamophobia that's come your way since, for the past couple of years. So any last thoughts?
Well, the parting thoughts are that American Muslims are as American as anyone else. It's high time for American Muslims to realize that we should start telling our own stories in our own way with our own perspectives. Because if we don't tell our stories, somebody else will, and they will tell it with their own narrative or their own perspective, and we won't like it. So right now in this moment, we need to really just, like you said, stand up for ourselves, speak for ourselves, tell our own stories, and go forward from this point onwards. We have been under threat constantly in Tennessee by any, I believe there are probably maybe 30,000 Muslims in Tennessee, in Middle Tennessee area. And we all are linked in a way that we serve this community with the best that we have to offer. We call it home. We pay our taxes here. We are raising our children here. This is the community we call home. And when you love your community and when you love something, you stand up for it. And this is the moment where Muslim community says, you know what, Tennessean, you did make a mistake. It was a grave mistake. We were hurt by it. But instead of punishing you, we're asking you for self-reflection. We're asking you to learn from this moment. We're asking you to build on this moment so that whatever work the reporters have done in our community, we build on it and move forward. We don't walk away, but we move forward, and we move forward together.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much to my audience. And this is exactly what we're doing. We're creating our own narrative here on Muslim Network TV. We are broadcast on Galaxy 19 all over Canada, United States, and Mexico. And so you're watching the Justice for All Now program. Thank you all for so much for being here. It's important for us to learn from our local communities, what has worked for them, and what's happening globally, nationally. I welcome you to tomorrow's show, where we'll be talking about DACA and this recent Supreme Court decision. We'll have three dreamers on board, and we'll have an attorney who will be telling us about the next steps, that what happens after the Supreme Court decision. So thank you so much for joining us. This is Hannah Zaberi, Justice for All Now. Thank you so much.